All right, so let's get started with today's webinar on the Q2 2018 release of the CharityEngine platform. I'm Lee Kessler. I'm your VP of Marketing and Communications here at CharityEngine, and I will be taking you on this tour as we see what is new in CharityEngine this release. If you have any questions, please use the questions module as part that is in the GoToWebinar tool. Happy to answer anything. And obviously, as always, if I don't know the answer, I am happy to get back to you with answers. So typing in your questions is a great way to make sure that your question is part of today's webinar. So let's start with what is happening in this this new release. I hope you've all had a chance this morning to play around a bit, are excited by what you see. As we jump into what's new here, I think there are really three areas of focus in this new release. The first is getting to information and tasks faster, and we call that less clicks. One of the things that people have always asked for is how can I do my task faster without having to drill down as far to get to what I'm doing. So you'll see a lot of areas where we really have focused on getting to tasks in less clicks. Also, more tools around data hygiene. You're going to see a number of places throughout this particular release where we've really done some amazing work using AI and machine learning to create a more streamlined and hygienic, data hygienic experience. And then lastly is better access for materials regarding the new features. One of the things we've heard as we've spoken with our clients and done research with you guys is that one of the things that happens is when a new release comes out, you'll see the materials, you'll be on the webinar, but it's hard to know exactly where everything is when you're actually doing your job and when you're in the system. So one of the big new things we've focused on is giving you better access for new materials. And that comes in a couple of places. First of all, here, let me make my screen just a little bit larger. Hopefully you guys can see everything okay with that. And right here is two things that are really important for getting to know your way around the system. Our notice changes, and then this drawer right here. When we roll over that, we see what's new in Q2. If I click on that and go to see what's new in Q2, that is going to show me all of the new capabilities in this newest release. And that's going to include individual documents of training around the highlighted areas. So the new contact screen, quick email blast enhancements, and so forth. And here I just click on Learn More, and that's going to open up that PDF document. Hopefully you've had a chance to click around there. We really try to focus on clear explanations of what's in here and how to use that. So always know you can go to that drawer and click on the highlights for that information. We'll skip ahead to the bottom because you can always go to CharityEngine releases or right here, CE version. We see that this is CE version for 5/30/2018. If I click on that, that's going to take me to the latest release notes. And that will also take me directly to the documentation. But here's the big change, and that's the Notice Changes button that we put up right here. Any page where we've added a new capability or an enhancement, you will see that Notice Changes button. So that is a way to alert yourself to the fact that, oh yeah, there's something has changed here. And if it's not clear what those are, click on this, and you're going to have three options, always two, sometimes three. Always one, often two, sometimes three. And those are Learn. So if I click here on Learn, that's going to take me to documentation around the capabilities that were added on that page. So the same documents that are up here, it's just going to be directly here. Feedback gives me a chance to provide feedback. So you guys can log in, write some thoughts about what you think of the new capabilities, add that there. And then the third one, and we'll see that, is the Pull Ripcord button. And this is a creative button. What that's going to do, and we'll see it in another section, Pull Ripcord allows you to go back to the previous version of that capability. So you'll see a lot of changes happened in the contact summary screen. That's where probably the biggest changes that took place in this release are. And if you go in there, it's your first time, you're not sure what you're doing, you need to do a task quick, you can click the pull ripcord button and it will actually take you back to the old version of CharityEngine. So it's a great way to sort of get in there, but if you really have an emergency need, you're not ready to play around with a new tool, you don't know where things are, you can go back to the way it was. So hopefully people find those particular enhancements helpful. The fact that you can learn right on a screen and be aware of what it is, provide feedback, and again, sometimes pull the ripcord. So moving on to our next thing after those tools for training goes to what we talked about was getting around quicker, getting to your tasks quicker. And you'll see changes in a couple places, but first and foremost up here in the quick links button. So we go up here in the quick links, I open that up, and you're going to see that I actually, a couple changes have happened. First, apps, which used to be the first button, is now the last button. So if you're used to using apps to jump around, it's just the last button in quick links, easy to get to. But we jump over to here to actions and search, and those are the two big changes. Actions is designed so you can quickly do the things that people most commonly come into CharityEngine to do, and that is add a contact, create an opportunity, create transactions, and then the list goes on, create an email blast, import data. So if you're here to do those new tasks, just click on that. It's going to take you directly to it. And we'll see when we click on add contact. Now it's going to walk me through the process. What type of contact would you like to create as a person, organization, or a household? And each of those types has a different fields. So we're putting you down a path where it's easy to make sure you're doing the right thing. So let's go to person. And we select that. We go to next. And now we've streamlined the original contact entry. You'll see here. So all of it's on one page to get started. Entering the name, so forth, assigning a contact, the gender. One great feature, want to point this out, if you're not looking at the screen now, pay attention, because this is a great new capability we've added in CharityEngine, which is single line address entry. So you'll see when I start typing an address, it's going to search and find, start filling in that address. And I was looking for 1515 Broadway. And so it makes it much easier to fill in data. We also have this capability on the front end for your forms. So people no longer need to fill in these blocks for address. They can find their address this way. And you'll see it actually parses out the data properly when we clicked on show details. The address, if there was an address, street, we would add a suite here, city, state, and zip code. So great new feature, and one of the best things it does is help standardize addresses. So that way, wherever an address is coming in from, I might write street, you might write ST, and we would end up with different looking addresses. This allows us to standardize addresses, and also what that will do is help with the hygiene and data matching that we're going to talk about later. By having the same address written for everybody, it helps us make connections between different contact records that are showing the same address. Moving down here, we can add our home phone, and then as we add more phones, we just click on that. And this helps us walk through the process of what kind of phones we're looking at, so forth, and I can make one preferred, etc. I scroll down here. This is where I'm going to add my employer. So this would be you'll notice in CharityEngine, we'll go into this, we've actually separated the concept of employers and households and connections, whereas employers used to be part of connections explicitly. It's now its own thing. It will automatically create the connection, but it allows us to look at employer-employee relationships and not just ones created by the former connections relationship tool. So I would just search here to find my employer, and As we see, this is part of the helping with entry of data. I look at organizations, I type Outback Media, the employer, and again, it's matching. So I don't have to go through all that information. I don't have to look far. It's looking for everywhere that might match Outback Media. I have one. I go ahead and use selected. If that doesn't seem like the right match, I can try to match again. Or if there is no record in the system yet, I can go ahead and click this and it'll just create a new record and I'll fill in the rest of my information. So this, as you saw here, the contact record, the suggested contact record appeared, and that helps with keeping your data clean. Same goes with households. We'll be able to enter that information there and add head, spouse, or other. And then our custom fields, so you recall custom fields and custom field groups previously. This is where you're going to have those, enter that, and then we'll look at where this information exists on an existing record. Communication, so if I'm selecting what they want to receive, I can do that here. And also things like what initiative brought them in, what response channel, if I want to have that data, that is part of it. So that is, that's how we create a new contact using the add contact. You'll also see that when I'm in this section, I go to, I have quick actions now at the top of contacts, and I can easily go directly create new person. And again, what this does is I no longer have to go into the search and manage area and find create new. I'm actually jumping directly into creating new contacts a lot faster. Same goes with create transaction. We'll take a look at the new create transaction tool. And again, this is part of less clicks, better information. We're really trying to make it easier to use for people who are less familiar with CharityEngine. They've maybe done less training. It's easier to pick up the task that you need to do. The first here is finding my the transaction. So I'm going to enter Charles Harrison. And it immediately finds two Charles Harrisons that it could be. And if I enter the address, it'll start filtering it down. Even if I had a different name but similar address, it will find suggested possible contacts. So what I'm doing here is I just go ahead and I click select. I'm going to give it to this guy. And now I'm working with the same contact record. My data's clean. It's all going to fall into the right place. Jump ahead. We click on next, or I could go to payment, but we'll click next here and see some of what we've got here. For simplicity's sake, I'm just going to make this cash, and I'm going to make this $250. Okay, and I can, if I want, I'm pretty much done. I could skip to the end. The remaining steps are not required. So again, this is part of making it easier to understand the flow and what you should be focused on. I can do that. I can go right to confirm, or I can follow this path. And when I do, it's going to start using machine learning to suggest, and AI to suggest things that could apply. So in this case, I have a transaction, and it's indicating that Charles Harrison received 2 recent campaigns. Is this transaction to be tied into one of those campaigns or appeals? Yes, it actually, we know that he gave us cash after getting the alpaca email. So I select that, and now it's checked. Or I could check none, and it will automatically default to none again if I don't do these things. Let's do next. Now opportunities. Is this tied into an opportunity, a major gift? You know, is this part of our effort to get Charles to do a courtyard naming? If so, click that. If not, click none, or just go ahead to the next thing. Again, accounts. If Charles has membership accounts or sustainer accounts or pledges, do I tie that? Do I want to tie that in? And a couple other things I can do is I do this. It's going to expand and show me more. Do I want to associate this transaction to an event? Do I want to show that it's something other than a donation? It's actually maybe a different category, an event registration or such. Is it tied to a fund, a GL code, response channel? Is it tied into my custom codes that we have built for our instance? So again, what you're seeing is it's designed to walk someone through the process of creating a transaction. And remember, there is documentation up here on creating a transaction. But But it's designed to walk us through step by step as a wizard would, but also skip irrelevant information that doesn't matter. And once we go to confirm, as you can see, $250 cash, Charles Harrison, and it assigned it to this campaign. That's the only thing I did. I click create, and it will go ahead and do that. So again, hopefully it makes it easier to understand the fundamentals of what you want to enter in a transaction, how to follow the flow, and avoid the things that maybe you were confused before as to whether or not you needed to add data. All right, quick transaction, same for send an email blast. I jump in here to send an email blast. Okay, and it's again going to follow a simple quick wizard. Now I can go into mail initiative or email blast from here, creative or initiatives. So I don't have to always send it using the quick way. This is just if you want to quickly fire out an email. And in this case, my recipients is the first thing it's asking. So either my source is either a list or a manual. And as you can see, the list is actually combined, very important. It combines queries and lists. Those are no longer separated into two things, and reports. So now when I look here, I see all of them. I know that the word Lee is somewhere in here. So now I've got this report, this query, this list that I can choose from. I'll go ahead and do Lee for testing. I could also do manual, in which case this is what we would use for just testing. I want to send myself an email to see what it looks like, and I can enter multiple people. I just do a new line for each one. But we'll go here and we've got Lee for testing is our group, and I don't have to touch these. These are additional settings. They're hidden because we realized a lot of people were confused about whether or not they needed to touch these. If it's in additional, it's not necessary. Message, I could create a new one. I can select an existing one, or I can upload code. For my quick email blast, I'm going to select an existing one, and I know that I believe the word alpaca is in it. I search. Okay, my alpaca email, I select this one. Okay, it's going to show my alpaca email. There we go. Will you help her find a home? Hope you do. With my subject, I would just want to change that there. And then, so, would you help this? Okay. Now I go ahead and click next. Now I can send it now. I can schedule it for later. If I do that, it's going to give me a time to do that. I want to name it. Delivery mode, live test, that's the same. If you didn't know what that was before, test will send out 3 versions of an email, HTML, text only, and a combination, so you can see what happens with those different kind of email clients that are only accepting those looks. Keep in mind that with test, whatever list you use, it's going to, or odd query, it's going to go to that entire group. So make sure that you only send it to a test list or query. Don't use that to send to your main group. Otherwise, they're going to get all 3 versions of that email. Additional settings here. So if you want to have your send notifications, if you use a specific server, you would select that here. If this is tied into a campaign, like donate your birthday, do that here, and so forth. This has not changed. One thing, for the most part, except for one thing right here, which is from display name and reply to. These things, so who's this email going to be from, what email address, what's the display name that will show up in the inbox, and then who's the reply to. This obviously is done at a global level. There is a default for your entire system. You can also do these for specific lists or queries. But when you're down to the specific email and you want to send it out, maybe you want to change something, or you just want to be absolutely sure of what the from, display name, and reply to are, you just select them right here, and that's now available to you. Now I click send. I confirm and send. So I've got the message we've chosen, my subject line, who it's going to, there's no suppression, and when do I want to send it? I want to send it now. I click send, and I'm done. So again, hopefully you see, made it much clearer and easier to do simple tasks like that. Going back to the quick links, remember, less clicks to get to our action. We've got our new actions, but here we also have search. And search is going to show you what you're looking for and a brief explanation. You'll see both of these have explanations. So someone who's new to CharityEngine will look at this and hopefully have a better understanding of what they would do if they clicked on this button. Let's do contacts. We'll go search for a person, organizations, or household. And now we're moving along to this portion. And that takes me directly to contacts. Again, it used to be that you'd go into contacts and then you'd go to the search and manage page, and then you have to do search and manage to get here. One less step to get to the same point. And I'm going to look at year-to-date contacts, because here is a change that you will notice. Remember, notice changes. Is part of our efforts at deduping and keeping your data clean is real-time intelligent deduping and matching. So what this is doing, when I pulled up all my contacts, it's for year-to-date, it's actually saying that it's identified 10 possible duplicate contacts. And if I click here, instead of all these, it's going to show me just those dupes. So this is a great way to do real-time, making sure that your contact records are clean, that you only have one contact, that your donor journey is being well managed. So we see all of these individuals. We see the little yellow circle next to it. That is what tells us that there is a match. Many of you work with our good friend Brian Moser. So I'll click on Brian's. And what this is doing is saying that there is a potential match, that this Brian Moser looks a lot like, it matches up with this. They've got the same email address. So somehow it got entered in two different ways, that the email address didn't create a unique ID. This is a 99% match. I can go ahead and select to merge it. And then once I do, I'll merge selected, and it will merge those two. I won't lose any data. It will combine all the data. But we can see from this Brian Moser, there's not a lot of data here other than the email. So it's easier to do. And you're going to start seeing a lot of functionality about what you want merged as we continue the development of this merge capability. Okay. Again, so we're going to look, when I go back, it takes me directly to the unfiltered one. But I'm going to do this because I want to show you Brian Moser. Also, I can find matches right here. So if I want to do this in bulk, I don't have to go into each record. I can go through each of these people. We go to Brian and we find matches, and I can do that. And it will open up that same window. Another place you're going to see this match capability is, let's go to Brian's record. Okay. And right here on the new user record, we see Brian Moser is probably a duplicate. Merge now. So again, when I come to the actual record, it's identifying for me, Brian Moser looks like a duplicate. Keep your data clean. Go ahead and merge now. And again, the same thing is going to pop up, and I can select to merge it. I'm not going to, because as you can imagine, I use this for demonstration purposes. So let's go back to our quick links and our search contacts. Okay. And something I just want to make sure everybody's aware of, this search right here, you can search anything. This is a pretty global search around finding contacts only. So I'm going to look up B. Harrison. Okay, and it's going to pull up the two people that come closest to B. Harrison. These are not matches I've selected that they are not, but we see two people, and we see right here, this is an exact match for B. Harrison, so that's why it's showing me that that is that. Let's click on B's record, and let's take a look at what the new user record is. So a couple things about what you're doing here. And again, if you go to Notice Changes, or you go to the flag, see what's new in Q2, there is a document all about the new contact screen. So please use that. Use that as a tool for training or guiding yourself as you're doing that. But let's talk about the three components of this screen, which you'll obviously see in that document. The first is, this is what we call the contacts area, because this is obviously the contact information. Over here is what we call our taskbar. That's where you go to do specific tasks. And it also speaks to our getting there faster, doing things quicker. So add, if I want to add on B. Harrison, I want to add a new event registration, I can just click here and do it. I don't have to go to events to do it. The events panel, I don't have to do anything. I can literally go to add and click event registration, and that will open that up. The other thing I can do is go to the go-to, and that'll take me, add will open up, creating a new transaction or whatever. Go-to will take me to the panel, and that leads to the next word. These are panels. As we scroll down, you'll notice we no longer have everything in one screen. And actually, here's the pull ripcord. So let's say I got to here, I'm not used to using this. I pull the ripcord, I click that, and I am bailing from this flight, and that takes me back to the old look. Pretty cool. So this will be available for the time being if you feel like you need to go back to it. But it's also a great chance to show you what is different in the new system. And you can see that it used to be everything was tab-based, right? I go into general, I go into, if I want to look at all their phone numbers, I go into contact, then address, then email, then phone. Let's go back and see if actually back will take us back to the old B. Harrison viewing. Yep, okay, interesting. First time I've done that. So now you can see I don't have to go all over to get to that same information. By removing tabs and getting into panels, and you see as we go down, every section is a panel. Activities, pledges, opportunities. I have this all on one screen. So I can go directly to connections, and that's going to move me down to this area. So again, instead of tabs, I'm moving around through panels. Let's go back up to the top, and one of the ways I can go to the top is summary, and that'll take me right there to the very top. So let's focus again on contacts. What do we see here? Outback Media. So now that employer relationship and that their job title is appearing here. We see the solicitor, and here we see address. Now we have one address here, 2700 F Street. But you'll see that we have actually the number 2 next to address. And when I click that, that's going to show me that there are 2 addresses on this record. That 2700 is her preferred or primary address, but we've got multiple. And I can edit them, I can delete them, or I can go ahead and create a new one and add it. And remember, we've got this great feature, 1515 Broad, right? And I can add it that way. Same goes with emails. So there is one email. We don't have a number there that tells us B only has one email. And phone number, I click there, and now I've got same capabilities. So less tabbing around, easier access to that information. The other thing is here, we see donor, pledge, and events. That tells me that B is a donor, has a pledge, and has attended events. Now, if she had other things like a sustainer gift or an advocacy action or other things, they would populate. They only populate when the person actually has that data. The same goes with go-to. If she looks like she doesn't have any advocacy here, but if she did have any advocacy actions, then that would appear as a go-to. The beauty of this is when I click on that icon, so I see she's a donor, she's got 6 donations, and that takes me down to her transactions. Okay, so easy to get to, and now I can do all that same filtering I used to do, show payments, show splits. That's from this filter bar. I can add a new transaction from here, so another easy access point. I can refresh if I do something and I need to refresh the data on the screen, I can do that. And here I can view the panel in full screen mode. So as you can see right now, this panel is part of the whole layout where I can go through it, but not all at once. I click that, and now it's going to put all of those transactions on one larger page. And I can click here, and it closes back up. The last thing is the X, which allows you to hide or close the panel. Now, where would we use that? Well, we would use that I'll show you, because one of the great features is our ability now to print or PDF entire contact summaries. So we've covered. So we'll go to the taskbar. We've covered this information, this contact information, how to get to their main things and see that data right away. Let's go back up to the summary. A couple of things in summary. Not much has changed in layout. A couple of things have changed, but a couple good features. Just right now in summary, we've got highlights around a most recent gift, largest gift, first gift, and their level of frequency. There's a couple categories for that: yearly, monthly, or other, which would be a different level of giving. Here on the donation history, we now see the number 3 next to the gifts, and if I click that 20,000, it's going to show me those 3 gifts: 17.5, 5, 2,000. So again, easier access to the data that may be most relevant for us if you use the contact summary screen. The thing about this contact summary screen is this is really where the value of CharityEngine is. It's the fact that all of this data appears in one single view. Again, here we have household and connections. We no longer have employer there because that's up here. And most of this is relatively the same. We've got our stream, etc. So we can add, we can go to edit. This is where we're going to edit biographical information. Again, you'll see this if you go to your release document. But when I click on edit, this is where we edit biographical information, their name, their gender, birthday, whether they're deceased. Communications preferences can be done here. In the end, they'll probably only be on the front panel. Source where they came from. If there's any retail settings associated with them, being a member or what have you. And security, their username and password if they have their own login for User Center. So again, this is biographical. This is employer, household, and custom fields and groups. So you recall when we created a new contact record, this is essentially the data that we were given. So that's what you need, and that's where you would go to get that. So again, if you're wondering where do I do this, think biographical. Everything about the person themselves versus here is contact information and giving and interaction history. That is our print PDF. I'm going to skip that because I want to show you the value, the cool thing there. Here expands and closes panels. So when I click on this, you can see I've actually closed all the panels. So I've got a cleaner access to the screen. And if I want to just look at opportunities, I can do that. So that is available to you. Also toggle header. And here I can open the panels all right back up. There we go. Toggle header. You'll see this is the header, this line right here. When I scroll down, that header disappears. If I want to see that information again, click toggle header, and that will all appear. And so that makes that easy. Let's go back to the top, although we don't need to. So now here's where we print or PDF the entire screen. So why would you use this? Well, maybe your chief development officer or a development person is going out to meet with a donor. They want a file, they want to print it out or just send them a PDF. They want all that information in one place. This in other systems can take hours to compile. In CharityEngine, this is all right here. So when I go to click this, it's going to open up my printer. And I can go ahead and open as a PDF if I want. And you can see it's got all my data, so my summary, and as I scroll down, my custom groups, my activities. This is small for you guys to see, I know, but just know that this is there. But this is actually going to print out 18 sheets of paper because it's the whole record. So what do I do if I don't want to do that? Well, that's where we maybe say, okay, we want to leave the summary, but we don't care about custom fields. I'm going to close that panel. I don't care about activities. I don't care about pledges I want to keep open, opportunities I want to keep open, transactions, event registrations. We don't need notes. We don't care about her connections. We don't need to know what group she's in, tags. So as you can see, what this is doing is closing each of these panels for me. This is temporary. It's only during the session. If I were to refresh the page, they'll all come back. So it's not a permanent thing. I don't need her email. I don't need her phone. I don't need her record history. Okay, and now you can see I made this screen much smaller. When I go to print it, give it a second to load, it's now 5 sheets of paper. So I've only focused on the things that I or my major gift officer wants to see during the actual meeting. So great tool, really helps with managing relationships, having data at your fingertips, and so forth. So that hopefully shows you everything on the new user screen. Trying to think if there's anything we missed. Again, we can add new things, go to anything. Oh, and here you can see when I X them out. Sorry, I should have pointed that out. It's faded out the ones that are no longer there. So now I see exactly the things that I have. And we have our toggle header, etc. So hopefully that gives you a good sense of what's in this user screen, quicker access to your data. So one last time, contact information, taskbar, and then these are panels. We looked at quick email blast. The last thing I want to show you here is the import-export tool. Let me see if there's any questions. We had a question around searching features work in the batch entry tool. Do tied searching features work in the batch entry tool? I'm not clear what the question is, so if you want to resend that, if you don't mind clarifying what you mean, happy to answer that. Hopefully, not a lot of questions. Hopefully that means people are understanding what they're seeing and, more importantly, liking it. Let's go to imports. So now we have import data. We have quicker access. Remember, you used to go into the automation workflow area where you would then do import. We can go right here to actions, import data. And a couple things I want to show you that have changed here. So from a perspective of importing data, let's say we want to enter. We now have all these different things that you can import around: chargebacks, emails, event locations, households, memberships, and so forth. So we're going to start with transactions. We're going to look at the basic people. The value of something like transactions, just so you're aware, is that when you can import each one as, say that this is impending, we want to charge them, or these are already paid somewhere else, so we just want to import that data. So that's the beauty of that. Let's go back to people. Okay, and if you've never done this, just so you do, I can say everybody import is going to be part of our media contacts ad, and then that will do that. And I can do for that for tag assignment. I can say everybody who gets imported is going to be on our newsletter recipients, and so forth. So that's the first thing. That doesn't change, but just want to make sure you're aware of that. We go to next. And you can see here that the data import tool has changed a bit. I can do a couple things. I can load a template. So I select my template to load, and we can go with this one, lead testing data import people. And that's going to automatically populate my this particular template. I can add fields to this, or I could start from the beginning. I could clear all fields. I could start from the beginning and just add them one by one. But here's one of the biggest things that has changed. So now if I'm creating a regular template, because getting information into CharityEngine, that is sometimes, how do you import it? What do you align? What links? Let's look something like, now I want to also employer name, okay? It's going to automatically add employer name. I don't actually want to do related to organization name. That's from an old thing. So employer name. So now I've got all this information, employer name, etc. Changes have been made. I can go here and I can update the existing template or create a new template, whichever I want to do. If I create it, I would name it here. But I can download this template. And the value there is that it will automatically align with this import. So when I get my data, I can download this. It will download it into an Excel file. You can work from Excel no matter what you're using, Mac or PC now. So you open up an Excel file, and it will actually show you these fields with sample data so you know what should go in there comparably. And that way, when you move along here, and let's say we're ready, we go to Next. When we upload our file and choose our file, that file will already be perfectly matched to this import. We're just going to take our data from our other source, match it up here, and that's really valuable over time. If you're always doing something, you create your standard way of importing, and you're always able to match your import template with your import job. And then so forth, and I moved it. I'm not just going to say no because I didn't upload a file, pretend I did. And so that'll walk you through. So a couple small changes there, but actually really helpful in terms of, again, keeping your data accurate and clean. Last thing I want to make sure I show is, let's go to transactions. And this has to do with soft credits. And let's look at this particular transaction for Charles Harrison. Okay, and we can see now in peer-to-peer, let's say Charles gives us cash. It's actually designed for a peer-to-peer activity, a peer-to-peer donation where he wants it split, and he instructed us that way. We can go in here, and then we can actually attribute this to, so of this $25, I can attribute 10 to, let's see if I have an example, Jack's Ride. Okay, and then I can do that and add that and do it over and over again. If it's done on the back end and somebody fills out a form and they do a peer-to-peer split entry, that will automatically appear in this way. But this is new, the ability to truly be able to report on the donations that are coming in via split peer-to-peer. This is a much clearer and easier way to report on it and look at the data. And soft credits, same thing, it's going to be available elsewhere. So they're similar but different, but we now have that capability with peer-to-peer. And again, just as you can see right here, contact Charles Harrison, that little yellow note that tells me that there's some interestingly different duplicate information. So here we see on this particular transaction record, I used 8200. But we know that for Charles, his contact record, his address is 123 75th. I can update it or I can dismiss it, whatever I want to do. But again, that's part of data hygiene to help you realize the connections between those two things. So let me go back to that question. Finding duplicates within the batch entry tool. It should do that. Batch entry has always had done a good job of finding the people, the individual matches. With using other data, especially if you're using appeal codes or source codes. I think it does it, but I'm not sure. Let me get back to you on that. If it doesn't yet do it, that is going to be added soon. There are definitely places you will see like New Pledge, where New Pledge does not yet have the new format. It is easier and clearer, but it is not, it doesn't yet have that same flow as the new payment. One thing you will notice, though, is if I do a new pledge directly from someone's contact, it's actually going to start me at contact and skip some of the other information. Sorry, it's going to start me at billing. Sorry, it's going to start me at payment. The better example would be under payment. But because it will automatically know that this was assigned to an individual, I don't have to fill in that information. It'll jump right into the gift amount. Excellent. So those are the major changes. A couple other things. There's now preferred language support, so you should see that in some places. The ability to have specific language, if somebody speaks Spanish or French, and that's what they want to be primarily communicated into. And that may not be in this, may not have gone live in the release. If not, that will be part of a hot fix over the next couple weeks. You can now do pledge creation by web form, something you couldn't do before. Now pledges can be created there, and that's some of the great new features. So that's a good question around. The question was, what is the difference between a campaign and an initiative? And then why is campaign in the transaction entry now associated when it used to be initiative? Has that nomenclature changed? It has not. That's just when you do assign a payment. I believe you're talking about right here. Let's go ahead and enter Charles. Okay, select that guy. Payment, $25, cash. Okay, and so you're saying, I think the question was, why is this campaigns? These used to be known as initiative. No, there's no nomenclature change. That is just connecting. People often think of the campaign as the broader thing, and that's where it's falling under. But no, there has been no change in that regard. If anybody doesn't know the answer to that, the difference between a campaign and initiative, a campaign is a broader thing, while initiative is a specific thing. So maybe Giving Tuesday is a campaign, but our initiatives would be: I'm sending out an email, I'm sending a direct mail piece, I'm doing Facebook posts. Those might all be different initiatives, but all of those would roll up and track as part of a campaign. And then Giving Tuesday might be a sub-campaign as against holiday-related days or specific giving days. Maybe you have a few throughout the year. Again, that's when you get into the power of CharityEngine. But that's a great question. Thank you for asking it. I'm going to leave it at that. If you have any questions, please type them in. I'll stay on a couple minutes longer. Other than that, that's what I'm here to show you. Again, I hope you've seen a lot of things you like, from less clicks to get where you want to go, the more power in the user screen, and also more power around keeping your data clean, and different things we're doing there. Okay, question came in, so we'll answer this one. As I said, happy to answer continued questions, or also say you're welcome to people who are writing thank you, or thanks Lee. Thank you to you guys. This last one is, does the salutation field automatically update now when the contact name is updated, or do you have to update that salutation manually? So let's take a look at what we would mean there. Let's see. Let's see. So salutations are, oh, sorry, no, salutations are not there. Salutations are go to salutations, and that gets filled out here. So this is actually important, and I apologize for skipping this. We now have automatic salutation generation, and what that's doing is separating a last name. Here you've got a formal name versus an informal name, and then you can add other information. You can override and change it, but it's automatically filling it so that when you do go to send campaign using either an initiative, sending formal or informal, it's going to appropriately use the right information citation-wise. I think that's what you're asking. I hope that is the case. Oh, another good question. For those of you still on, thanks for hanging out. Are transactions attributed to the household record still, or do they live with with either person or organization now? That is a good question. Transactions are no longer attributed to a household. They are attributed to the people that are part of that household. They will get the credit, but no, a household cannot make a transaction anymore, because the truth is that it is people at a household who are doing that. How do you make a membership inactive? That is a good question. I don't know. We can do it together and explore here. So let's look. Okay, so Charles Harrison here. His membership type, yes. Change status, pause it, cancel it. So those are places where you can make it inactive, I believe. Let's see what change status. Okay, that's not that. Sorry, I don't do everything in the system, so sometimes I'm figuring it out myself. Cancel. We can cancel that, and this just explained if we wanted to give a reason why, and we would close that. But then you process the cancellation of that account. That is how it would do it, and that would make it inactive. I believe it would, and then you'd be able to separate between those two. Okay. All right, so at the moment, no more questions. I don't have any more questions. So with that, we'll wrap this up. Thank you guys for joining me for this webinar. Again, remember, if you have any questions, I'm going to record this. This will be on our YouTube channel. So go to YouTube, search CharityEngine Nonprofit Software. You'll find it. You can also access our YouTube channel very easily on the front page of your home screen, where you go to watch our YouTube channel. We click there, and that'll actually take us to the link that gets you there. So we'll have this recording there, but also remember, I can go here and I can access my guides, the new contact screen guide. The contact summary one may take a little longer to close because there's a lot more information in it, but this will walk us through. And there's even an opportunity for some self-training in it. And again, remember, whenever you see this guy, notice changes, you're looking at a new feature. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day, and let us know how we can help and what we can help you do. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.